everybody, I am Bill, the company's expert, and I'm as happy to see you as you are to see me. And while you're figuring that one out, welcome to Startup Concepts, the show where I share some of my knowledge and experience at building businesses and growing businesses and mentoring startup founders and even working in startups a long time ago. And today we're going to talk about co-founders, where to find co-founders. Okay, this whole business of finding co-founders. How do we do it? How do you go about it? Where do you look? Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today. I've actually gotten many requests for this. People are obsessed with co-founders, and I know there's a lot of people giving opinions on it, so I wanted to give my 2 cents. Right off the bat, there's a lot of people that want to start businesses, whether that's like a tech startup or a more traditional small business, but they don't want to go it alone. Okay, this is a very common thing. And so they want to try and do it in partnership with somebody else. Okay, either one other person or more than one person. Okay, it is common to get 2 people starting a business, 3 or even 4. And I suppose you could go higher, but I haven't really worked with that situation too many times. Now, this is, I guess the first thing, the starting point here, is to explain the theory behind it. Okay, it's not a stupid theory. It tends to make sense. To make a successful business work, you need several things in place, okay? And the way I look at this is there's a sort of trinity, like a holy trinity of 3 things that you need: marketing, operations, and finance. If you have those 3 things down, you got a business, and you got a successful one too, okay? So operations is making the thing that you're selling, whether that's a product or a service, okay? Producing that and making it good, that's operations, right? Marketing is being able to sell that to people, okay? Making this thing that you have meet their need, and then the ability to connect with your potential customers, send the message you need to send to convince them to do business with you, and bam, you're in the money. And finance, obviously, is the money, is being able to fund all of this in the beginning so that you can get it off the ground. And also, you're on top of the finances, you're on top of the accounting. So you are making more money than you are spending, and therefore you have a profit, okay? That's the holy trinity. That's what you need. Now, it's not super common to find somebody who is a genius at all 3 of those things, okay? Usually, you might find a person that's really, really good at one of those, but being really good at all 3 and having a passion for all 3 is not so common, okay? So it's logical that to round out your skill set, instead of you picking up the weak areas, what you're not strong in, you get someone else to do it, right? So probably the simplest way to do this is you would have 3 people, right? One person does the operations, one person does the marketing, and then the third person does the finances, right? So if you could, in theory, find 2 other people that complemented you that well, and you could work together, you have the same opinions, you have the same beliefs in terms of business and people and things like this, and your personal work style and personalities complement each other, then great. That would work, okay? And that's the theory behind this, okay? Let's say you're a genius at only one of these. Well, if you try to do a business on your own, you might have some real challenges making it work. But if you hooked up with 2 other people that their skills complemented yours, all 3 of you succeed together because you collectively have everything you need, right? So that's the idea. It's a pretty simple enough idea, okay? Now, the next thing I've got to say is I got to say this, and there's no other way for me to really say this. I know a lot of people simply answer the question. They tell you where to find a co-founder. I don't know. I kind of advise people not to find co-founders. You know what I'm saying? Let me explain, okay? I've had the privilege of working with a lot of very bright, very talented entrepreneur types. And something I've noticed is that when you get solo entrepreneurs, okay, when someone is a sole founder, they're not working in partnership with anyone else. It's just them trying to get a business idea off the ground. Okay. Usually they come to me with problems that are to do with the business. Okay. How to sell this product, how to develop this product, how to arrange partnerships, how to do the supply chain, things like this. Those are their biggest headaches. Okay. When I've worked with people that are co-founders, okay, there's like more than one person that's founded the business. You can almost set your watch to this. It's the biggest issue they have is working with each other. It seems that once you separate that work into two or more people, now you've got all kinds of inefficiencies because these people have to coordinate. And if you make decisions collectively, jointly, you've got this added step you have to do with everything, which is you've got to get buy-in from the other person. Okay. Now, if you have two people that they think absolutely the same about everything and they always agree, great. But I don't really see that. I see two different types of people, because what we established at the beginning is that, you need those big three skills, right? And if you can find someone who lives for sales and marketing and, is like a real entrepreneur in the pure sense of the word, they like to sell things. If you could find someone like that who's really knowledgeable and passionate and experienced at that, but then if you could see them get along perfectly with somebody who is an introvert, who maybe is a software developer, works at home, is really, really into software development. If you could get those two types of people together and get them to agree on what they should do and how they should do it, I would give you a medal, because you don't really see that very often. And I hardly ever see that, if at all. The fact is, these are two different types of people. Now, when things are going good, they're going good. And it works out. If the company is successful, they've got a product out or they've got a service out and it's selling and they're making money, then great, everything's great. But as I'm sure you guys suspect, a lot of the time when you're starting a company, you're not in that success stage. You are in the stage where things are not going right and you don't know what to do and things are not working. And at that point, the differences between these types of people really show, because people are upset. It's discouraging. And in order for them to get things moving, they have to work with this other person who doesn't think like them and is coming from a different place because they've got different background and different skills and a different perspective. And so trying to get those people to buy into everything and to act collectively, in a harmonious kind of way, in my experience, has been a very tall order. Okay. Now, this kind of, just as a side note here, this kind of parallels, I find this actually quite interesting. This parallels a lot of the issues you have in larger businesses, established businesses, where, a lot of the executives, the number one thing on their mind, the thing that keeps them up at night, the thing that stresses them out, the thing that they concern themselves with the most, you would think would be sales, but it's not. It's HR. It's that they don't get along. It's that they have to work with this other person that they don't like. And it's stressful. And it's the people issues. And that's what occupies their time. That's what they put the most effort into. That's the biggest worry they have on a day-to-day basis, is those HR issues. Okay, if certain people are just not with you and they're not working with you and they disagree, and but you're still forced to work with them and it's not fun, that's the thing that is the biggest headache and the biggest concern and the biggest worry. And so it gets the most focus. And it's funny because, like I said, that's the biggest issue that I've dealt with in advising and mentoring at the very small scale when I'm doing that with startups and startup founders. When you're dealing with co-founders, that's the thing you're always dealing with. It's not about the business. It's about, how can I work with these people? How can we get a system, get some way to agree on something or figure out what's the best way to do? I want to do this, but they want to do that, right? So that's the biggest issue. So for that reason, this is maybe an unconventional opinion, but I actually advise people, look, if you're serious about wanting to start a business, okay, this is something you are passionate about and you want to do, you would love to be in charge of this thing, you don't have to answer to a boss, you get to call the shots and do it your way, and that's what you have fallen in love with, and that's what you want to do. I'd actually advise people, all things being equal, to not get a co-founder. Don't go down that path. Instead, try and round out your own skills, okay? I'm not saying that's sustainable all the way, and I'm not saying that that's the ideal situation. Yes, there are some problems with it. You're only one person. There's a bigger limit to the amount of work you can do, obviously. That's the biggest one. But at least, it makes the process more efficient because you're not having to get buy-in from someone else, okay? Now, this is a huge topic, okay? There's a lot of very strong arguments why you wouldn't do that. There's also a lot of very strong arguments why you would, okay? Now, as promised, let's talk about how you can actually meet co-founders, how you can find them, okay? Now, here's the deal. There are a lot of resources, okay, probably in your area, that are set up to help startups, wannabe entrepreneurs. Okay, if you want to start a company, there's a lot of peer groups, there's meetup groups. You might have a startup incubator in your area, which is like a sort of thing that's set up by the government that's supposed to encourage people to start businesses, and it's like a resource center for people who want to be entrepreneurs and found their own business. Okay, there's some things like that set up that I'm sure are in your area that you could take advantage of. Okay. And they have mixed results. It's logical that, if you want to start a business, you would go to a place where other people who want to start business goes to, right? The big flaw, I would say, with those things, I'm going to do a separate video on this at some point, is that that's great, but it appeals to extroverted type people. Now, if you go back to the 3 things I say are essential, marketing, operations, and finance. Okay. Marketing, you could argue, generally speaking, that's a pretty extroverted type area of study. Okay. It's related to sales. And we all know that sales is a very extroverted kind of thing. It involves talking to people all day long. It involves convincing people of something. Okay. So it's a people-centric activity. And that's great. So if you're looking for someone that is good at marketing, then meetup groups, peer groups, startup incubators, they may be a source for that, okay? However, if you're looking for the 2 other things I mentioned, okay, which were finance and operations, the operations being the most important one of the 2 here, not always, but a lot of times, the people who excel at that and love that tend to be introverts. Okay, if someone has like I used the example earlier of software development. Okay, you're a developer, you're writing code, right? You're developing an app, which is the cliched thing that startups do. Those people tend not to go to meetup groups. You might have more of an online kind of forum, online, like they'd be over social networking. They might connect with people. That could be something, but you don't see a lot of those people going to meetup groups and shaking hands and doing group activities and stuff like that, in my experience. Of course, there's exceptions to that, but there's a hell of a lot of people that don't do that for that reason. That's not their bag. That's not their type of person. Same with finance. Finance is kind of the same way. You can get finance people that are very extrovert, but it's like accountants. Accounting is at its core, it's a very solitary thing. It's like you're working on a computer at a desk doing spreadsheets, doing financial statements and things like this. And, that's a solitary thing. Same with IT. IT is kind of the same thing. These are introvert-centric kind of areas. And so a lot of the people that really love that stuff and embrace it and are highly skilled at it, in my experience, don't go to very extrovert, social kind of things, right? In the last couple of years, things have changed a little bit. Everybody's stuck inside to varying degrees. So the internet has played a larger role in connecting people. more so than it was even before in 2019 and earlier. But the same thing applies. So that's something to consider. So if you're trying to connect with those type of people, don't just confine your search to meetup groups and group activities, where you do like some kind of social event. Okay, that would be my thing. You would find those people possibly on social networking, and it may even be harder to connect with them. Something I've always advocated for was meeting somebody in school. If you are in university or you are in college or high school or whatever, that's, in my opinion, the best way to meet someone and connect with them, because you know them. You're not just put together to get together. You are put together for a third reason, like which would be school. And then you can see them, you can see their natural rhythms. They have a reason to be there. You have a reason to be there. And you can gradually build that relationship and see if it is encouraging enough to go further with it. It's almost like the equivalent of, hooking up or meeting like romantic relationships. How do you meet your significant other? Well, it helps if they are at a place that you are also there too for a third reason, whether it's school or a place of employment or anything like that. Because the alternative to that is something like speed dating, where you're just thrust together. Do you work? Do you work? Okay, well, there isn't enough time to really explore it, right? So school is the best option in my experience. Okay. And you can go to some startup events, but I'd also look online for that. I would say don't sort of hook up cold. Okay. They should be someone that you know from before, you've worked with before, you have at least they're an acquaintance of yours. That, in my opinion, is the best. And the most overriding important aspect of this is going to be their personality. Do they complement your personality or not? That is by far the biggest consideration, okay? Because you know what? Skills can be learned, and when everyone starts out, they have no experience, that comes. But the thing that kills any business relationship, any startup entity is, people don't want to work with each other, okay? So if you're good friends, that will trump skills any day, okay? Because what ends up happening, it doesn't matter how brilliant somebody is at their thing, if you can't get along and you disagree on everything, it's never going to work, okay? So find a co-founder in a place where you have a reason to be there, like school is perfect, or a place of employment is perfect, okay? Or a common interest group is perfect. But the most important thing is whether you get along, okay? And it's precisely, it's how well you get along when things are not going well. That's the key, okay? If my experience in advising everybody has taught me anything, that's really the key. Anybody can get along with anyone when things are going great. When the money's pouring in and you're going from success to success, that tends to smooth over a lot of problems. But when things are not going well, when you get failure after failure after failure, as almost everyone does in the beginning, okay? Do you get along then? That's going to be the single most important factor, okay? And the problem is, if you go into business with the wrong person, it gets messy, it gets ugly, okay? There's a lot of money involved, there's responsibility. If you've taken financing and having to pay back money, then it's like, it gets complicated. Who's responsible for paying back that money, okay? People incorporate, people give out shares, people have all kinds of contracts with each other, but none of that stuff matters. What really matters is, do you actually get along when the chips are down, okay? So, sorry for this rambling kind of thing, but that's the bottom line, okay? Number one, I advise, try to go it alone if you can, okay? Business, if you want to succeed in business, you succeed in business by learning about business, and that's a long-term thing. So if you're serious about this, you got to learn this stuff anyway, okay, if you're going to be successful. So start putting in the time now, and there's no better way than being thrust into it, and you got to learn it, okay? If you do decide to work with co-founders, The number one most important thing is that you get along, okay, on a personal level, and you get along when things are not going well. If the first sign of, things failing and things not being very encouraging, if that immediately causes friction between you guys, it doesn't bode well, okay? You have to be able to get along. That trumps ability any day. And then thirdly, if you do want to find a co-founder, don't just look at social events. Look where the introverts are too, okay? Because some of these things are very introverted, some of the skills you need, and it attracts introverts. And they don't go to social events. They don't like social events. It's bad enough that they have to go to school a lot of times, okay? And a school or a workplace or a common interest group would be the best place to find a potential co-founder. So I hope that makes sense. Thank you for listening. You guys are awesome. And you're doubly awesome if you want to start a business. This is a great thing. This can be very messy. It's like getting a job. It can be very messy. It can be very intimidating. You get good by doing it for the long haul. Experience really helps you conquer and solve these problems. And I take my hat off to you because it could be the source of great success for you. Okay, so that's what I would encourage. So if you want to do this, it's a very noble cause, and you can't be afraid of failure. It's all about managing risk. So thank you very much. You guys are awesome. I will see you on the next video and the next video in this series, Startup Concepts. Thank you. Take care.